Hello and welcome back to Kibara Network. An interview we picked from West Coast Radio between Peter Gomez, Minister of Information, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, and also Attorney General and Minister of Justice Dawda Jallow, talking about the new draft constitution. For more details in this story.
Welcome back. It's 4 minutes past 9 o'clock. Now, it was the Information Minister, Dr. Ismaila Ceesay, who messaged me to say that joining him on the program this morning was going to be the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. So I thought he was going to be the host of the Attorney General, but guess what? The Attorney General is here. We still have no idea where Dr. Ceesay is. So we'll start with him. Well, I call him Da, but his full name, of course, as you know, is Dawda Jallow. He's Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Da, welcome back to West Coast Radio and Coffee Time in particular.
Thank you, Peter. It's nice to be back.
You suddenly disappeared. I mean, we hardly went, 6 months without meeting in the past, but it's been a year now, hasn't it? No, it's not been a year.
Not a year yet.
Not a year, because you've been to the studio and we were only 1 year here on Sunday, the 25th of August. That was our first anniversary. Welcome back. I'd like to start with Sam Sarr,
Yes.
who last week was supportive of the cabinet draft, if we can call it that. I will not call it the Dawda Jallow draft, but you know what they say, a week is a long time in politics. He seems to have changed. I woke up this morning, was going through my messages, and I found that he messaged me last night.
Hi, Peter. Good evening. And how are you tonight? I know it's too late, but I have some input about your program tomorrow. I heard you talking about the ministers coming to your program to discuss the draft constitution, the hot topic of the town. So I have some little message for them, if you can forward it, if you have time for it. Anyway, while I have objection to the executive fine-tuning the 2020 draft constitution, which in my view should have been discarded for being a largely plagiarized charter from Kenya, I find the revisions in sections 91, 99, and 106 regarding presidential succession unsatisfactory. How does it still not raise concern that Kenya, the very country from which this 2020 draft was copied, is currently bogged down in political turmoil due to poor governance? Anyway, the 2020 draft stipulated that in the event of the president-elect's death or a vacancy in the presidency during the term, the vice president, speaker, or chief justice will temporarily assume office, with elections to be held within 90 days. However, I am perplexed by the executive's decision to alter this provision in the new 2024 draft in section 96 and 103, which now state that in such a vacancy, the vice president, the speaker of the National Assembly, the chief justice, or the most senior Gambian judge, if the chief justice is not Gambian, will serve out the remainder of the term. While the rationale for ensuring continuity of the president's policies is understandable, this approach seems counterintuitive. It resembles the United States of America Constitution's provision, except that in the United States, the vice president is chosen by the presidential candidate before the election and is elected alongside the president, making them a legitimate successor in the event of death or incapacity. In our context, however, an appointed vice president has not been elected by the people and should not automatically govern in place of the president. Therefore, I believe it will be more appropriate either to require presidential candidates to select their running mates, vice presidents, before the election, allowing them to be elected together, and justifying continuity if the president can no longer serve, or to retain the 2020 draft provision that mandates fresh elections within 90 days in such circumstances. This is a critical point worth reconsidering and re-amending to ensure fairness to the citizens. Another significant aspect of the Constitution that I find concerning and hope the executive can revisit it is the limitation of free education to only the basic level. I believe it is crucial to extend free education to cover both basic and secondary levels for all children. This change will greatly enhance the nation's educational standards, especially during a time when many average families struggle to afford school fees, particularly in polygamous or extended households. That's it, Peter. I thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you very much, Samsudin. I did have a good night. That's why I am able to be here this morning. Dr. Ceesay has just joined us. Without a doubt, Honorable Jallow is going to be the main focus of attention now against 10 o'clock. Dr. Ceesay, welcome back. I see you are now jetting around the world. Beijing was your last port of call, wasn't it?
Yes, good morning, Peter. I'm happy to be back.
Very good. So what can you say in Chinese?
Well, yeehaw. Good morning, Honorable Minister.
Fantastic. Okay, you want to start right there, or you wanted to give, a general explanation of the motivation behind the changes in the 2020 draft? Is it the 2020 draft that Cabinet altered?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning to all the listeners. Peter, the first place I would want to address is I have been following the comments in the social media, but also in other places. The fact that it's been said that there were no consultations leading to these adjustments that were made by Cabinet is something that probably we have to address. Since the Constitution was rejected in September 2020, there have been series of rounds of consultations or mediation or whatever term you would want to use. And I think those of you in the media are witness to this. We facilitated it at the Ministry of Justice, but we invited independent, neutral, non-Gambians to come and help us facilitate the dialogue, because we realized very soon after the Constitution collapsed in 2020 that it collapsed because of a political difference between the politicians. And we learned our lessons, that we focused so much on the content, on developing the content of the document. And we tend not to have given so much attention to the process of bringing that document to life. And that is a political process. And because of the disagreements between the politicians, it led to the collapse of the document, because it collapsed in Parliament, and it was a clear political process that killed it. So because of that, we thought it necessary at the Ministry of Justice to, in earnest, start a political dialogue. But of course, we did not limit it to only politicians. There were a series of rounds of discussions in country, where mainly we targeted heads of political parties and leaders of political parties, but also we involved civil society. Easy way of helping you to recall these rounds of talks, where if I mention the frequent visits of Goodluck Jonathan into the Gambia, and subsequently the visits of Ibn Chambers into the Gambia. Most of you in the media were covering those visits and those meetings. Almost all the political party leaders participated in series of discussions. And they identified issues in the document. Surprisingly, there were so many other issues in the 2020 draft that so many people were not happy with. And they identified these issues at their level, and they discussed it without any influence from government. At the Ministry of Justice, we were only facilitating these meetings. We allowed the politicians, and in some cases the civil society who participated in those discussions, to highlight their areas of concern. And this was facilitated by an international NGO, International IDEA, who have got expertise in helping democracies develop constitutions, not only the Gambia. In fact, they have supported the CRC and offered them trainings and facilitated some study visits for them. So that's the specialty of International IDEA. to support democracies to develop constitutions for their countries. So I wrote to IDEA immediately, I think late September or October in 2020, and invited them to come and support the process. But because it is a constitution, and government, like we are here today, government is a key stakeholder in that process, I decided to advise that government takes a back seat. We only facilitate through an independent organization. So IDEA facilitated this, and IDEA is available. People can consult them. They have even opened an office in the country here. They have the reports that emanated from all these dialogues. And I'm happy Dr. Ceesay, who is sitting with me here at that time, he was in the opposition. And he was representing his party in those discussions. So to say that there were no consultations, just government woke up and brought changes, I think that's not accurate. We got reports that were submitted to us by International IDEA at the end of those rounds of discussions. Now, those reports were put together with, of course, the cabinet paper and other documents, form the collection of documents that we took to cabinet for cabinet to review the document. Now, of course, cabinet went beyond what the issues that were raised by political parties and the recommendation that emerged from those consultations and probably from other documents. Cabinet went beyond that and effected the changes that we are now seeing and discussing. So first, that's the misinformation I wanted to clear. There was series of rounds of consultations, and we did not only use International IDEA. For every round of discussion, we have used eminent Gambians to work with them side by side. In some instances, we used imams and pastors. They are here, they're hearing me. In some instances, we use eminent Gambians who are expertise, former speaker, I think, in one instance, and in another instance, a retired human rights activist from international community. We use them we call them, in some instances, I think we call them eminent Gambians or whatever. So to work with IDEA, so that when IDEA, because they are a non-Gambian entity, when they go to the table, they go with these respectable Gambians to facilitate the discussion, because the ministry, as a government ministry, we decided to just take a backseat. We normally will attend the opening or the closing ceremonies, but everything was facilitated by IDEA. So that the IDEA submitted a report to me, which I took to cabinet. And this consultation culminated into the famous Abuja convergence that you had been talked about. We took all the heads of political parties, all of them, except I think PDOIS, Alifa Saleh, maybe one or two, if I can remember. But majority of all of them went to Abuja. I was with them, but I did not sit in the room where the negotiation was taking place, because again, the same policy position, government should not influence this. We need to exhaust the political process, because we needed a political consensus, and we need that even today. Without a political consensus, this document will never go through. So they met and they discussed. The report that I received from that consultation, that final consultation in Abuja, was they've agreed on almost all the issues that separated them except one, which is the famous retrospective application of the term limit. Other than that, the report submitted to me is that they have accepted all of them. Now, in August last year, when we were thinking of relaunching the process, because at some point we have to suspend the process because 2021 election was very near. So we say, okay, we have to leave the constitution until, and this agreement was reached among them, we suspend it until after the election cycle. Then we can relaunch it again. And the election cycle includes the presidential, the parliamentary, and the local government election. Once those were completed, when we initiated to relaunch the process altogether again. But before we even go to cabinet, we again brought International IDEA. And these negotiations were funded by partners who are also in country, and they can be consulted. Resources have been spent in all these consultations. So International IDEA came, I think they came in August last year, and they came again. They still went to refresh the people that they met before and try to see where they left off before the election. The positions are the same. And again, I received a report from IDEA as to where things are. Few areas that they have not agreed on. I think citizenship was another area. The issue of cross-carpeting of National Assembly members is another area, in addition to the famous term limit. So then these are the documents I put together and went to cabinet. So I think the first thing that I need to clear is to say that this happened out of the blue. There was no consultation. Of course, we would not want Peter to start a CRC process altogether again. to open the document again as if there was no consultation. CRC, with all due respect, did a lot of consultation, locally and externally. And the document that we're talking about is a product of that extensive consultation. So if you are reviewing the document that has gone through that wide range of consultation, the consultation that you're going to do should be limited. You don't necessarily have to call everybody else again and say, what's your view? Because it's a document that so many people, sectors have an interest in, and we cannot all agree unanimously over everything in the document. So we were being cautious and have been advised that the consultation should be a limited one. And we did a limited consultation, went to Cabinet, and we are out and we are here today. I think that will be my starting point to clear the air, that there were indeed consultations, and these changes did not just drop from the air. Now, after Cabinet completed the review, there cannot be another consultation after that. That's not practice. Once Cabinet is ready, that's why we gazette. By gazetting the document, you are bringing it to the attention of the general public. And that is why the law said it should be gazetted for 3 months and 10 days. During these 3 months, 10 days, that's what we are doing now. We talk over it, whether we agree with the changes of Cabinet or not, and then different ideas will be collated, and those discussions will inform Parliament, because the next level of consultation now can only be at Parliament. So Parliament too, in considering the document, will not just will have to listen to the public. Maybe some people will be invited to the committee stage so that they brief them about whether the original clauses or the changes that Cabinet have made. But the purpose of gazetting actually is to bring it to the attention of the public so that the public will have an opportunity within these 3 months, 10 days to make their views known. And these views will now have to be taken on board by Parliament at the time of consideration stage. So, Peter, this is what I wanted to clear. Maybe now we can go down to Mr. Sar and any other issues that people have about it.
Let's go straight to Mr. Sar. I mean, he raises 2 important issues.
Yes.
Education and also should in case the president is unable to, complete his
Yes,
term.
actually, government or cabinet decided that with respect to vacancy occurring in the office of the president, we maintain the current status quo. The current status quo in the 1997 Constitution is that if a vacancy occurs by resignation or removal in the office of the president, the vice president is the first port of call. Will have to continue and complete the residue of the term of the president. If there is no person occupying the office of a vice president, then the normal succession chain kicks in. That is, it falls on the speaker. If there is no speaker, it falls on the chief justice. But what the 2024 draft did, we considered a situation where there may be a non-Gambian holding the office of a chief justice. In that regard, the 2020 CRC draft contemplated only a Gambian chief justice. And when we get to that, probably I'll clarify that. That's regarding the judicial appointments. But then the current 2024 draft tweaked that to say in the event that succession drops on a chief justice, who at the time is not a Gambian, then the most senior Gambian judge in the Supreme Court will have to act in the position. So yes, that Sam got it right. That's what is there. But it is the continuation of the 1997 provision that is there. And yes, he raised 2 concerns. One, that kind of arrangement in a democracy is best suited if the vice president was a running mate to the president, because the 2 will be elected together. Mm-hmm. Or otherwise, there should be an election if the vacancy occurs within 90 days, as it was proposed by the CRC. The U.S. system that he quoted, that is right, they are running mates. Kenya also, where he said most of the terms that we are seeing in the 2022 draft came from.
But it says the 2020 draft is a plagiarization of the Kenyan constitution.
I have to be fair to the CRC. I'm not too sure whether I'll call it plagiarization, because they did acknowledge the sources. They took clauses from different constitutions. In some cases, they took more from some constitutions than others. But they did acknowledge. And when you do an intellectual work and acknowledge your sources, you cannot be accused of plagiarization. So they did acknowledge their sources. And they have indicated how they reviewed those clauses and how they believe those clauses are best suited for the Gambia, and they adapted them. So, yes, but it's true, a lot of clauses came from the Kenyan constitution. We've noticed that. But for me, that's not the issue. The issue is in Kenya, vice president and president are running mates. In the Gambia, we are not running mates. But this is what government have settled for. But again, like I said, nothing is cast in stone in this case. It will go to parliament. So we continue to debate them.
Education. Why drop free education for secondary school?
I must make this disclaimer. We will be having a press conference tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I hope some of my cabinet colleagues will join me because maybe some sectors are better equipped to respond to certain specific provisions than me as EG.
Definitely MOPS, although we don't have a substantive
but we have an overseeing, Prof is overseeing. So I hope he will join me at the press conference so that when there is a issue touching on a specific sector, which I may not have the expertise to respond, they could just jump in and offer an explanation. But I believe more on this issue of education. I think is more on affordability. But Doctor is an educationist in his.
I think also there's a UNESCO report which is that the Gambia has introduced free education in stages, starting with primary school education in 2013. Lower secondary school in 2014 and upper secondary in 2015. So currently, secondary school is free. I think the idea is not to put it in a constitution where you open yourself for litigation in case for budgetary purpose you're not able to fulfill it for free. But currently, secondary education is free.
Then don't put primary education in there at all.
But if government realize that is what is sustainable, that is what we can guarantee, we can put it there. But if there is no guarantee that you'll provide free secondary education, you put it in a constitution and you open yourself for litigation tomorrow, if you're not able to provide it, then that can cause a problem.
All right. I'm going to ask Dawda to continue talking. I'm going to adjust your microphone again, and please don't touch my microphone because you've knocked it so low. You can barely be heard. Yeah. Now you are being heard.
Now I'm being heard. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. Okay. So we'll leave this for tomorrow's press conference.
Yes.
All right. You want to address other issues?
Oh yes. If there are if there are listeners, because it's better we direct the discussion to what concerns the listeners more, because there are a lot of issues to talk about.
Okay, all right. Good morning, Uncle Peter. I'm Eric Tunde-Jane. Kindly ask the Honorable Minister, what was the justification of the Cabinet for the deletion of Teachers Service Commission from the original 2020 draft? Teachers are not happy. The education fraternity are not pleased with such a major deletion. If the President is still allowed to nominate 5 members as National Assembly members, then let it be in this form. 1 representative from the Supreme Islamic Council, 1 representative of the Gambia Christian Council, 1 representative of the National Youth Council, 1 representative of the Women's Bureau, 1 representative of the disabled community. I think this is a 2-in-1 question. Starting with deleting the Teachers Service Commission.
I think this is an advice we got from the Public Service Ministry. The commissions,
which is headed by a former teacher, the Public Service Ministry.
Yes, and but generally, the 2020 draft recommended so many commissions, and these things have it involves creating institutions, and they have budgetary requirements, and the question is. What task could they do? Could those tasks be better handled and be more efficient without necessarily overburdening the public service with creation of more commissions and more institutions? Because it's not only the Teachers Commission. They have recommended series of other commissions, which we have streamlined. So it was not only the Teachers Commission that was removed. So other commissions were reduced. So it was a reduction of so many commissions that were recommended to be created. In fact, they recommended, I think, a creation of a commission to oversee the implementation of the Constitution itself.
Oh, wow.
So many commissions were recommended. And we need to understand, anytime you create an institution, you're creating additional burden on the budget. Because the people that will serve in those institutions will have to be paid salaries.
Absolutely.
The institution have to have a budget. It'll have to have resources to operate. So you ask yourself, what job would they be doing? If it is only to deal with personnel matters of the teachers, why don't we devise a better method that could be more efficient without necessarily creating an institution? Because it's just to get the job done. But I don't know whether Dr. Ceesay have something more to say.
No, I think that was it. That was the justification.
He talked about the president having the power still to nominate National Assembly members. I mean, this is another contentious issue.
Yes.
It has been widely criticized.
People
feel that the only people who should be in that house are people elected by voters.
Again, like I said, it's a democracy, and we will continue to debate different views, and all the views are important, and we have to accommodate all of them. I respect that position, but since independence, we have used a democracy where people are nominated, because nomination also serves a purpose. There are certain sectors in our society that will never find their way into the National Assembly through election.
True. For instance, Christians, I can say it for us.
All right. Okay, because we are living in an absolute majority Muslim country. That's one way. So that's why these nominations, they do serve a purpose.
Yet twice Barrow failed to nominate a Christian to the National Assembly.
So now what we did not specify like Christian per se, but we tried to regulate the president's power. And I don't want this to be about Barrow, because Barrow may be out tomorrow.
Well, for now he's there.
He's there,
everything we say now is about Barrow.
Yes. No, I mean for even the commentary, because some people accuse us of developing a constitution purposely to suit Barrow, forgetting that Barrow probably can go any time from now, and this constitution is here to stay. The constitution that we are talking about, the author is no longer here, and we are still using it. So what I'm trying to say is we try to regulate the criteria for nomination. So we inserted to say if he is going to nominate, it will not just be a blank check. It must come from specific areas, and they have been mentioned: civil society, or the private sector, the commercial, and then in the end we said other sectors of society that would ordinarily not be represented. Now the texter is concerned about women, youth. Those ones have been taken care of through these affirmative action provisions.
Exactly. There's going to be a 30%, female minimum 30% representation.
They will be there. The disabled will also elect their own representatives, I think, too. So the affirmative action provisions have taken care of disabled women. I could not remember on top of my head whether the youths are taken care of there. But if they are not, these nominations will take care of those ones.
Good morning, Peter. My main concern about the heated debate goes towards the drafters of the 2024 bill, and these are my questions to Dawda and his team. What audacity do they have to single-handedly alter our national document without consulting the relevant authorities and stakeholders? Why don't they follow the same process and consult the respective parties whose inputs were made in the initial draft? How do we trust them again to lead us to the promised land by offering the best of legal advice in the interest of our beloved nation? And how do they see themselves amongst legal professionals with regard to integrity? I think it's disrespectful to us taxpayers and disgraceful as well, embarrassing to themselves for trying to put forward the interest of selfish politicians ahead of national interest. Probably the texter missed where you were addressing the issue of consultation. There was consultation by your explanation. The program is normally shared, so they will have an opportunity to hear that. How do we trust that you people will lead us to the promised land, that ultimately we will have a constitution? Do you think this is a document that will pass?
No document is perfect, but it will go to Parliament. When it gets to Parliament, it will go through the normal legislative process. So Dr. Ceesay, when I say something to that, for me, my job is to make sure it goes to Parliament. I'll table it, and I will be there to make sure that since it is my bill as Minister of Justice.
Oh, it's your bill. Okay, sorry, it's your bill. I was going to say somebody calls the draft Dawda
No,
Jallow.
that's different. That's a different thing altogether. The draft is not mine, but the bill, I'm the one carrying the bill to National Assembly.
Sure.
That's my job.
Absolutely.
That for sure, I can guarantee that commitment is there.
The consultations prior to it going to cabinet, and now it's been gazetted for the public to debate on it. And rightly so, the public is debating. I mean, it's been one of the most talked about issues in the country for the past 2 weeks. That shows how Gambians are interested in this constitution. Now Parliament will do their job. It will go to the legislative process, which will also be very comprehensive. And then it will be subjected to a vote in a referendum by the people. So at the end of the day, It is going to be a constitution where everybody's input is heard, but also where the people made a decision to have a constitution to a referendum.
We have an input from Paus Jallow in Frosinone, Italy. Hi, Uncle Peter. Can the Honorable Minister point to any provisions in the Constitution that give powers to the executive to write the Constitution?
The legislative making process that we have in this country, most bills emanate from the executive. And this is a bill. The CRC that drafted the Constitution was created by the executive, and that is why the draft was submitted to the President. So in our lawmaking process, of course, the executive is the stakeholder. And so we considered it as a bill. So that's the reason the executive looked at it as a bill before it goes to National Assembly, and that has been the tradition in lawmaking in this country.
Okay, Sam coming in. Peter, I am afraid to differ with Honorable Justice Minister, but the CRC never necessarily acknowledged their Kenyan source in the Constitution until lawyer Lamin J. Dabo exposed the whole secrecy under close wrap.
No, actually they did a report. The draft Constitution was accompanied by a report, and this is a requirement under the CRC Act, that when they submit the draft Constitution, when they complete their job, they submit it along with a report. And in that report, that's where they discussed their various sources. So if you only read the draft, of course the draft will not give you a reference where the clauses came from. Okay. But if you read their report, in the report they discussed some of their sources. And I believe I clearly remember reading some issues bordering on where some of the clauses came from, including the Kenyan Constitution.
With all honesty, the 2020 Constitution was not the best of constitutions. There was a lot of conspiracy against the executive. Those who read it know the executive were left with no powers to exercise the functions of their office. And this is coming from Mr. C. Mr. C seems to be saying that the 2024 draft balances out some of the anomalies, if you like, of the 2020 draft. Is that how Cabinet felt when they were going through the 2020 draft?
Yes, Peter. You know, it's important to highlight that probably those who are against the 2024 bill may be louder, but we have to respect the fact that there is still a considerable opinion among us who believe that the 2020 wasn't good enough as well, and who believe that 2020 should not pass as it was submitted, and it should be amended properly. And so, like I said, it's a democracy. People form different opinions. So here we are. We continue to debate, and we see when we get to Parliament what views will be taken on board by Parliament and which views will not be taken on board by Parliament. But at the end of the day, again, we will never have a unanimity over the content of this document. It's just not possible. And if everybody insists on getting what you want in the document, then ultimately we don't get a document.
And then we continue with the 1997 document.
Yes, so some form of consensus building should be encouraged. We look at what are the main issues there that we share, and we look at our differences. Of course, still there is room for adjustments, but we can adjust up to a point that is acceptable, a matter of give and take to us, and then we move on, because not everyone can get it the way you want.
Okay.
Many Gambians also would agree with Mr. C, the writer's point, that if you look at the 2020 draft, in my view, I think the drafters at that time were haunted by Jammeh's ghost. They wanted to create that never again scenario where a president will have certain powers. And effectively, they hollowed out.
Which you supported initially.
Well, yes, at that time.
Because you wanted the 2020 draft, passed as it was.
Because I was hungry for a new constitution after Jammeh had left.
You were only hungry for a new constitution?
At that time, yes.
Only a new constitution?
Yeah, because everybody was hungry for that. There was the consensus in the country that we needed a new constitution. But what I'm trying to put across is that powers were hollowed out from the center. At some point, it felt like you live a lame duck, ceremonial president with no powers in a presidential executive country. Our political system has a strong president, having other organs of the state like the legislature and the judiciary to act as an oversight institution so that the executive's power is not abused, but not to usurp the powers of the president. That is not the purpose.
How did the 2020 draft usurp the powers of the president?
Imagine, for example, the president, most of the appointments has to go to National Assembly. The president didn't have the liberty to even appoint ministers. It has to go to National Assembly. Now imagine a president, and the system we have, a president's party has a minority in the National Assembly. The opposition has a majority. He can't do anything. He can't even appoint people. That will lead to a logjam in the system. And that is what we are trying to avoid in the system, that the president should, the kind of political system we have, a strong presidential system, the president should have the latitude to appoint certain members, particularly cabinet. We cannot usurp that to the National Assembly in the name of reducing the powers of the president.
So no minister should be cleared by the National Assembly before they take up their...
Of course not.
Okay, all right. Good morning, Uncle Peter. Gambia's constitution needs to be updated to promote progress and reduce selfish interests. We need to rewrite and continuously adjust the constitution to better suit the average Gambian. I suppose that's just an observation. Does it require any response from either one of you?
No, yeah, we just have to acknowledge that he is right, and that's the very process that we are on. We are trying to get a better constitution. Yeah.
Somebody saying bring back the 2020 constitution. Good morning, Peter. I want to express my disappointment on the illegal move by the Ministry of Justice to neglect the due legal processes expected of any democratic government before such a sacred document is gazetted. Gambians are aware and watching, and surely all those responsible in the making and advocacy of such an illegal document will surely be accounted and pay the price for the illegal actions. This is coming from Celestine. Celestine, you would do us a great favor by telling us what the legal process is.
Yeah. And what is the illegality he's talking about?
Why did government not also engage the same stakeholders before the amendments is the other question from him.
Yeah, like you said, probably he also missed the opening of the program. We talked about the issues of consultation, and like you said, since you do circulate your audios, and the program is also repeated, I think, in the afternoon.
It is, yes.
So I think they will benefit from the explanation. There was consultation, and we have cleared the air on that.
Peter, I want to ask the Honourable Minister, what has Goodluck Jonathan to do with our constitution? Are we not a sovereign state? CRC consultation was evident, meaning we saw them everywhere consulting everybody regardless of your background. But this paper was deliberately faulted by the Justice Minister and the President. We need to clarify that. People say Barrow was totally against the 2020 draft constitution, and for that reason, when you went to the National Assembly, you made a very weak defense of it before the National Assembly members, thereby making it easy for them to throw it out, because you were not convincing, in the eyes of those who were evaluating you, assessing you.
Peter, you see, like I said, people are very opinionated and they are within their rights. I went to the National Assembly, I think barely when I was just 3 months in office. I found this constitution was already gazetted. I found the environment was already highly divided and polarized. I knew, immediately I assumed office, I knew this was a damage that I have no ability of fixing. So, and this is the mood that was in the National Assembly. Minds were made. I don't know how somebody who is fair to me would expect me to fix that. I have found the constitution already gazetted. The nation was highly divided over that constitution. It was already there. It was only my role to go and finish the job. It was a job that was started, and they traveled very far before I assumed office. So I don't know how somebody who is in their fair mind can expect me less than 2-3 months in office. I started office in July, and I had to go in September in Parliament to go and table the Constitution. So I don't know how somebody could fairly expect me that I should fix that problem within that period.
I've just received this from the Chief of Staff. Let me see whether I can read through it. It's actually a condolence message. It is with deep sadness and a great sense of loss that we write to acknowledge news of the demise of the Honourable Justice MMC, distinguished member of the bench until her demise, a judge of the Supreme Court of the Republic of the Gambia. I extend sincere condolences on behalf of Cabinet, the entire government, and indeed my own behalf. We mourn the loss together with the judiciary. The loss of such a legal luminary and intellectual giant affects the very fabric of society and creates a void that will be difficult to fill. However, we accept the decree of the Almighty as people of faith, and we sincerely pray for God to forgive her and grant her blissful repose in heaven. We are grateful to the late judge and her family for the services she has selflessly rendered to the Republic of the Gambia and humanity at large, especially in recent years, as we reform and fine-tune our governance processes, with the legal sector being a critical element of that process. Please accept our heartfelt condolences and kindly extend our prayers and solidarity to her family as we mourn the loss together. May the gentle soul of the late Justice Mam Yassin C. rest in perfect peace. Actually, this is from His Excellency Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, addressed to Honorable Chief Justice, Office of the Chief Justice, Judiciary of the Gambia, Law Court Building, Banjul. Maud, I'll send you a bill.
Thank you. Peter, I think that covers all of us in Cabinet if the President extends condolences. I have personally reached out to the judiciary. But also, again, I can repeat, on behalf of the justice sector, we extend our condolences to the family of late Justice C. She was an outstanding judge, and she has contributed her quota. May her soul rest in perfect peace.
Did you work with her? Barrow was telling us how, they had a case which she was judging, and how, probably against their expectation, what obtained here, during the 22 years of Jammeh. She actually came down on their side.
I appeared before her briefly while I was in private practice, but we have not interacted very closely. The Supreme Court is a panel, so I appeared before a panel which she was a member.
Somebody sent it, I don't know whether you can help with this, somebody saying, please remember the late President Yaradua and President Goodluck Jonathan replacement incident. This was when Yaradua passed away. Mm-hmm. And Goodluck Jonathan replaced him.
I didn't follow that. Maybe Doctor being a politician.
What happened was that Goodluck Jonathan was the vice president.
Yes.
And when Yaradua passed, he became the president and finished the duration of the term.
So that
and then he contested. Exactly. The system that we have currently in the 2024 draft, that the vice president continues the residue of the term.
Okay.
So Goodluck Jonathan contested the election subsequently and became the president.
But in Nigeria too, they have running mates. Is that not the system they have in Nigeria?
Nigeria doesn't have running mates.
Oh, they don't have running mates?
But you see, this thing with running mates, we need to understand it also.
Okay, make us understand.
It's not always good practice, because you come to realize that recently, for example, in Kenya, there was a period when, Kenyatta, was not in good terms with the vice president. And recently, there's another country where the president also not in good terms. So sometimes you are stuck with the vice president. You don't even look eye to eye for the entire term. You can't fire them. It's toxic. It creates a toxic situation in governance. So it's not always good practice to have a running mate.
Is that another part of it? Go ahead.
So what happens and what works in the US might not work in the Gambia. We have our own democratic culture. For example, in the US, we call it the most democratic country in the world. You can have the popular vote.
Is it not?
It's not. Because they also, not democracy is perfect. Democracy has, no democracy is perfect across space and time. And it varies. Every context, every geography, every country, based on your culture, must define your own democratic path. In the US, you can win the popular vote. Hillary won the popular vote, but she didn't become president. Who became president? Trump. Why?
Why did he become president?
Exactly. Is that democratic? In the UK, for example, they have a parliamentary system, yes. When Boris Johnson, I think, resigned, they did not go for elections. Someone from the party, from the Conservative Party, took over. 3 successive prime ministers in the UK, all from the Conservative Party until that elections now. So every country must define your own democracy. We cannot say because it's in America we have to do it. This issue of nominating members to go to parliament is part of our democratic culture. It's part of our parliamentary culture. Why should we change it because other countries are not doing it? So we need to understand that for the Gambia, our democracy must be defined based on our history, based on our geography, based on our culture, and based on our aspirations, not only of today's generation, but also in the future. And remember, this constitution we are building is not for today. It's not for President Barrow. It will outlive all of us. It will outlive the cabinet that presided over these refinements that we have done in the constitution to ensure 2 things. One, it aligns with our democratic principles and aspirations, but also we created a constitution that can serve future generations as well. So this issue of running mates, I think, is overhyped.
Okay.
It's not always the best practice.
Let's move on. I was hoping somebody would raise this question, but since nobody has, let me bring it up. The issue of leadership and integrity, the whole chapter was taken out of, your draft. What's the reasoning behind that?
Doctor has a good response to that, but what I would want to add is what we noticed in Cabinet in the 2020 draft, other than making it as a sort of like a code of conduct, they made it very binding, and a violation of it could lead to sanctions, sometimes banning you from holding public office for life. And some of these,
if you do wrong, why shouldn't you be punished?
No, but there are if you do wrong, there are so many instruments to punish you for doing wrong. If you steal, if you are corrupt, if you do any other thing, there are so many instruments within our legal framework to deal with those things. But because this is constitutional violation, so we have a similar thing even in the 1997 Constitution, sort of like a code that is prescribed for public officers to guide their behavior. But in the 1997 Constitution, it was not made binding. It's at the back. It's not made binding. This one is made binding and very punitive. So
tweak it like you've tweaked other.
In the Constitution in the first place. Issue of integrity has no place in the Constitution. There is no serious constitution in the world that has issue of integrity. We have these things in the Civil Service Code of Ethics.
You're taking us now to other constitutions when you say our democracy should not be modeled on other democracies.
But this one was what I'm saying is that broadly speaking, in general, constitutions lay the framework for governance and not to issues of integrity, which can be seen to be very subjective. These things are covered in the Civil Service Code of Ethics.
We are doing things our own way, Dr. Ceesay. You just said a moment ago.
Yeah, but who said this is our own way? Who said that is our own way? Having integrity.
The 2020 draft said it.
Yeah, but nobody agrees. No, not everyone agrees with it. It should not be in the Constitution.
That was not one of the contentious issues. I've never heard a single person criticize the 2020 draft for the chapter on leadership and integrity.
But does it mean that people have to criticize it for us to think that it has no place in the Constitution? It has no place in the Constitution.
When you say for us, you mean the cabinet, the Barrow cabinet?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, me personally, I don't think that integrity issues should be in the Constitution, should be constitutional. The Constitution should be as lean as possible. It should just lay the framework for governance and not to bring issues there that can cause problems later along the way. Okay. How do you now interpret from a Supreme Court issues of integrity, for example? These things are covered in the Civil Service Code of Ethics. There are other instruments in the public service that cover these things. They have no place in a constitution.
Okay. And there are some who are saying that, to be precise, Madi Jobate, that the commencement date of this constitution has not been spelled out. For instance, on the issue of the 2-term limit, when does it kick in?
Well, the 2-term limit of the president?
Yes. In the original constitution, you said that it was, retroactive.
What we removed, CRC in the transitional...
It was specific that, term one was from the moment President Barrow took over.
No, not necessarily. Well, they didn't put it directly like that. In the transitional provisions, they say the term limit will begin. How would I put it? Because I don't have it verbatim. But it will begin during the term of the president.
That the current term the president was serving would count as term one.
Yeah, because it was presuming that it will come to, the constitution will be passed.
Yes.
So it says the term limit will start during the tenure of the president whose time the constitution came into force. So technically counting, if it passes, the president that was in office, that term that you were serving would have counted as term one.
Okay.
That's the way they...
So at least this one tried to define, commencement of the provision.
Yes.
So in your 2024 draft, do you have that specificity?
The specificity is not there. So when the constitution comes into force, the first mandate of the constitution will be the election that is held under that constitution.
So technically, if we have this passed, then 2026 would be, term one for whoever.
For whoever.
Yeah, whoever.
Yeah.
Let's just generalize it. It could be Barrow, it could be you,
could be anybody.
It could be Ismaila. You are still in opposition, are you?
I'm not in opposition.
I'm
in alliance.
You are now fully NPP.
I'm in alliance with the NPP. CA an alliance with NPP.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, we have only 4 minutes actually because 10 o'clock we have to leave here. So maybe closing statements, one or two issues you'd like to raise? Of course, you have a press conference to announce for tomorrow.
Of course, we have a press conference tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the Sadada Jawara Karaba Conference Center. We'll be hosting the Minister of Justice tomorrow.
And hopefully the other ministers who can help him explain
some of these important issues. Like he said, this is a constitution building process. Now, constitution building process are always protected. They're always complex. They're not always easy. And it's difficult to get consensus. But what we try to do is consensus building. This document is not for today. Let's think beyond this government. Let's think beyond President Barrow. Let's look at the aspirations of future generations as well. We should not personalize this. And most of the comments I've seen online, most of these things I've seen online.
I'm not online, so
no. Most of the comments I've seen so far from people I expect to look at this thing from a fair point of view. I've personalized it because it's from the government of President Barrow. They think that now we should fight against this constitution. They are not doing justice to the Gambian people. I think this constitution should be given a chance. Let's debate it. It's gazetted. Let's have a fair debate on it. Let it go to parliament and let's see how we can make it there will be no perfect constitution in the world, but let's see how we can make it a very good constitution that can serve the purpose of us consolidating our democratic ambitions today, but also for tomorrow as well. So let's debate on these issues and then see how we can get a constitution. But like I said, it's not going to be easy. We will not get a perfect constitution. Not everybody will agree on everything in a constitution. It is not possible. There are things that I don't even like in the constitution.
Which one? This one?
Every constitution, yes, of course.
What don't you like in this constitution?
Specifically, I cannot know now. But like I said, for example,
have you not read it?
No, I've read it. Of course, yes. We read it from A to Z.
Yeah, exactly.
I've read it from A to Z, but I'll have to reserve some of my reservations. I cannot come out and say I don't like this X, Y, and Z. I'll be opening up a can of worms in terms of debate.
Was there a heated debate in cabinet as you finalized, this document?
Of course, as usual. I mean, cabinet is composed of citizens from all walks of life with different political ideas. Definitely, there'll be disagreements, but at some point we look at the bigger interest and there's convergence of interest as well. This is what mature people do. So I see no problem with that. What I'm trying to say is that there can never be a perfect constitution. Everybody will have an issue with the constitution, but let's look at the bigger picture and let's ensure and work towards ensuring that Parliament passes this and it goes to a referendum and we have a constitution at least. And President Barrow must be commended for fulfilling a promise that he will deliver a constitution. And he is delivering a constitution. So the opposition should take note of that and not do anything to really scupper our efforts.
Okay. All right. And Dawda, of course, the President promised in his State of the Nation address that there would be a referendum by December 2024. Is that still possible?
No, it is not. And thank you, Peter, for bringing that. I just need to make that correction. We were very ambitious when we contributed to the President's statement way back around February, February. But you see, the statement was late delivered and we didn't have the time to correct that timing. We were optimistic that it could have happened. But given the timelines now, it's not realistic that the referendum can be held in December. But definitely, we will be able to table in December, the National Assembly.
So what's the new timing now?
Actually, it depends on how long it will stay in the National Assembly. Once we get the necessary consideration and votes, if it sails through, the IEC will have 6 months from that date.
So you're saying if not when? You still hold the prospect of it being rejected?
I have to be a Democrat. I have to respect the Parliament. Parliament, for every bill, they have the right to approve or reject. So I cannot predetermine what is going to be the outcome of a parliamentary process. So I have to respect that. So whatever happens in Parliament, if it sails through, it will have to go to a referendum within 6 months from the date of the vote.
Whoa.
So IEC would have, but don't be scared. We are already working with IEC ahead of time because we have to be optimistic. So we are discussing.
So you table in December. If they take 3 months to go through this, you're talking March 2025.
Yeah.
Another 6 months, and we are September, October.
Within 6 months.
Huh? Within 6 months. It could even be 1 month from that date.
Okay,
so it's within 6 months.
Okay.
And like I said, we are already working with IEC ahead of time. So currently we are engaging with IEC. We are doing needs assessment. What would they need and those kind of things.
It was supposed to be transformed into an IBEC, Independent and Boundaries Electoral Commission.
That is after this constitution comes into force. It is this constitution that is renaming it.
Is the 2024 also renaming it?
Yes, we have not touched
that.
We have not touched that.
Okay, there were suggestions that that has.
No, it hasn't changed.
All right, Dawda, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Peter.
Dr. Ceesay.
See you next week.
See you next week, God willing. And that brings us to the end of the program. Thank you very much for the pleasure of your company. Coffee Time will be back tomorrow. And don't forget, they have a press conference starting at 10 a.m., you said.
Thank you once again for watching Barrow Network. We thank you very much for listening. And we thank all our listeners outside, within and outside the Gambia, in the diaspora. And it's your brother Pamani. Thank you for watching.